All right, good morning, everybody. Today is Psachim, Daf Chaf. We left off the top, but most importantly, right, this is the end of our Tuma Sugya, for the most part. Very difficult Sugya. So we left off at the top of Chaf Amud Aleph, second line from the top, Habasar Tameh. Now, going back, it's not as bad as we had earlier. Actually, we're going to see some concepts that we saw earlier. So we're discussing the case of one who goes ahead and in the mikdash, and they went ahead and they shecht an animal and they find a needle, right? So he said that his hands and the knife, those are tahor, and the basar is tameh. And if it was found in the perish, it was found in the excrement, then it is all considered to be tahor. So first it says v'habasar tamei. So now the Gemara asks, "Hi basar, this kasha b'mai." So we know by food it has to be huchshel l'tuma, right? It has to be either moistened or something to make it food, to make it susceptible to tuma. So with what liquid, right, is the basar susceptible to tuma? So I'm Rabbi Rabbi Yechna. So this kasha b'dam. If we say that it was machshir, okay, with the dam, with the blood. Where do we know that the blood of kadshin is not, even though sometimes normally blood is okay to be hachshir tumah, but however the blood from kadshin for a carbon is not good to be machshir tumah, to moisten it in order to make it susceptible to tumah. Shinamar, as the pasuk says, you shouldn't go ahead and eat blood, right? You should rather pour it like kamayim, like water. So dam shenishbach kamayim machshir. So we learn from over there, the only blood that's supposed to be poured on the ground, right? It's blood that's poured out. That type of blood is machshir tumah. However, sheina nishbach kamayim, but blood that's not supposed to be poured out, like the blood of karbanos. Why? Because the blood of karbanos is collected in a kli and taken on the mizbech and sprinkled there. Ain't a machshir, so that's not a good machshir. So v'elo diskasher b'mashki beis metapchios. Okay, maybe we're referring to the water that was used to go ahead and skin the animal, and the water that was used there to clean off the meat in the beis metapchia by the butcher's house, or in the butchering area in the mikdash. Not only are they tower, right? But that they're not machshir. So we see that the water there is not considered to be a huchshel tumah. So va'elo diskasher b'chibas hakodesh is a new concept. Maybe that something which is kadosh, such as the meat, doesn't need to have a hechsher, because it's called chibas hakodesh, right? Because it's hekdesh, since it's so holy, right? Therefore, it's already susceptible to tumah. So maybe you want to say that. So the Elis kasher b'chibas hakodesh. So emar debahani lechibas hakodesh livsule gufe. So maybe yes, chibas hakodesh. In other words, that is susceptible to tumah in order for it itself to become tummy. So the mina bei rishon risheni nami. So he said, but do we say that for it to for that it could also be part of basically becoming a rishon and a sheni and passing on tuma? Do we say that the chibas hakodesh, right, allows it to be susceptible to tuma to even go to that next level? Well, if that's the case, you should be able to answer a question. Because Rabbi Shlokish had almost an identical question regarding this chibas hakodesh, right? That you're assuming, oh, well, since it's chibas hakodesh, therefore it's already susceptible to tumah and can pass on tumah. Well, is that the case, right? The Reish Lakish, if you have like a clump of menachos, right? So you have basically an area that did not come in contact with the oil, right? And it was basically like a hardened clump. So over there, do we go ahead and is that susceptible to tumah or not in order to make something a rishon and a sheni to pass on tumah? So the question over there was asked. So we see that chibas hakodesh, it's not clear that it can go ahead and transmit tumah, right? So chibas hakodesh is not really an answer for our case, because who says that chibas hakodesh works the same thing as something which is huchshel tumah? So Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel could go in Shahisa Parasha Zivchei Shlamim. Maybe this animal was from the Zivchei Shlamim, Va'avira Benar, right? And then they brought it to the river, the Shachta, and then they shechted when it came to the Mikdash, V'dayin Mashke Tafeach Aleha. And turns out it was still wet. It was still wet from the water, right? That when it passed through and it drink water and it passed through. So therefore, that is still wet from there. So since the basar, the meat was moistened there from that, therefore maybe that's where the hechsher tuma came across. And so the Gemara says, "Nintzas beferish." If the needle was found in the perish, right, in the feces, right? So hakol tahor, everything is tahor, right? The basar, the hands, the knife. So any other perish beneath my basar. I understand. So if the animal, why don't we say that the excrement from the animal, right, is wet, right, and let that be the hechsher for the basar to be matame that. First of all, you can say that perhaps we're talking about the excrement was hard, it was solid, right, and therefore it was not considered to be a liquid. And even if you say it was soft, since it's a mashka seruach, right, it's something which is disgusting and putrid. So therefore, such a mashka is not would not be hechsher l'tuma. Fine. So Tana Kamei de Rav Sheshus. So it was taught before of Sheshus Sheretz Metame is a mashkin. Right, we're at the last skinny line on the Chaf Amud Aleph. So it says over there Sheretz Metame is a mashkin. So a sheretz, right, if it comes in contact, it can be metame liquids. Umashkin, I'm going to count here. Umashkin metame is a kli. And then liquids can go ahead and be metame if it comes in contact with a kli. The kli metame is a eichlin, and a utensil can go ahead and be metame food. But eichlin metame is a mashkin, and food can go ahead and be metame liquids. V'lamdanu shalosh tumos b'sheretz. So we see that the sheretz has the ability to give off 3 tumos, right? So the Gemara says, what do you mean? Hani arbohin. You just listed 4 cases, not 3. Right? So the answer is guz mashkin the ratio. So take out the first mashkin of the ratio, because first it says, right, the sheretz came in contact with the mashkin to the kli. So just so you know, the sheretz came in contact with the kli with food with liquids, right? So the Gemara says, adarabba, guz mashkin the seifa. Why don't you take off the mashkin at the end? Say mashkin kli oicha. Why do you have to put mashkin at the end? So it says, no, l'ashkan tana da'omer mashkin metamin kli ela Rabbi Yehuda, right? The only way for the fourth one, right? Excuse me, the first one, right, which said that the sheretz is matame liquid and the liquid is matame kli. We only find one person, one shita that we've listed earlier that holds mashkin can be matame kli, and that was Ella Rabbi Yehuda, and that was only Rabbi Yehuda and he was chayzer. And the way to remember this brisa is the simanach and the zaisa, right? That of a beer, right, beer keg, right? The way they used to go ahead is basically they would have a kli, right? Then they would put in the food, the hops, or whatever it is, and then they'd put in the liquid, right? So it's over here, the sheretz touches the kli, touches the ochel, then touches the liquid, the mashkin. Fine. Tanan hasam, sheretz shenimtza betonor, hapas shabaseicho, shnia. If you have a sheretz that was found inside an oven, so the bread that was in there is considered to be a shnia, mipnei shatonor tchila, because the tanur itself is basically like the rishon, and therefore the rishon comes in contact with it. Since the bread is inside, it becomes a sheni. So I'm related about the barava l'rava v'nichse lahai tanur command demali tuma dami v'tehavi hai pas rishona. Well, why don't you say like this? Why don't we go ahead and view as if the entire tanur is basically filled, since the sheretz inside it is all basically completely full with tuma, and therefore anything inside it is considered to have made direct contact with the sheretz. So therefore, it's not that the bread is now a sheni from being inside the oven, and the oven is rishon from the sheretz, which said that everything inside there, right, is a rishon, including the bread. So you can't say that. Why? The tiny limit rice. You might think all kalim can be matame within the airspace of a earthenware vessel. Tamaloymar. Turn the page. Kol asher b'seicha yitma. It says over there, anything that's inside it will become tummy. The samichle mikola eichel, and it says next over there mikola eichel for any food. So eichel matame ma'avir kliacheres. So therefore, we see that we learn from there that only food that is inside a klicheres can become tame, but any kalim, right, that are inside it is not tummy because his oichel is not considered to be tummy. So therefore, if you have an earth or something else, a kli inside the tanur, the kli itself is not considered to be direct contact with the sheretz. It's only oichel can be inside. So therefore, we see that the airspace is not considered to be completely touching everything inside. And therefore, back to our case, we have to say that basically it was like the sheretz touching the oven, and the oven being which is a rishon, being matame the bread, which is a sheni. All right, 2 dots. Now that was the end of the sugya of tuma and tahara. So you can all take a deep breath. Now we go weiter. So don't worry, this is there's a longer gemaras, but it moves now. So we're third line from the top. So those of you who haven't paid attention for the last 7 days, you can now start paying attention. All right. So now, going back to our Mishnah, which was on Yud Daled, which was again the whole point. The whole point, the way we got in this was there was a machlokas as to how one discards his truma, right? The kohanim eat truma, and there's a prohibition. You can't go ahead and destroy it, but what do? You have to destroy chametz. So you go ahead and burn it. You can burn it right at the beginning. But the question is, can you burn it with something which is tameh? Because then you're really being metame the truma even though you're burning it, right? But you're metaming it at the same time. So perhaps you have to go ahead and burn them, destroy them separately. Your truma tahira here, your truma tameya here, and then you have the stuff which is suffix. So that's also a question, because if you go ahead and destroy it too soon, maybe Eliyahu Navi can come and he can go ahead and pass it whether it's tahor or tameh. So that was the whole question in the Mishnah. Now, so third line from the top, Rav Chizda Rami Pischa a Pischa. So he asked the kasha, right, in the shita of Rabbi Yeshua, right? He asked the shita of Rabbi Yeshua. In this case, from our Mishnah, which is discussing destroying for Pesach, and another one of Pesach. So mi Amar Rabbi Shua Shtein Kachas, who says that you can go ahead and burn them all together, right? So you're trying the proof that you're trying to understand. In other words, burning truma to the cases you brought together. It was not a good comparison. Why? So when they testified, what did they testify about? If you're telling me that any meat that became tameh from a vlada tuma, right? Let's say it was a sheni or some other level of tuma, they can go ahead and burn it with an ava tuma. Zet tummy, zet tummy. Well, both of them are at least tummy. That's how you can burn it together. And if you're talking about oil that touched a tefillah yom, and then we said over there, and you're allowed to go ahead and put it in a candle. That was like a kli, which is metame, which was came in contact with the tumas mace. So zet pasul was a tummy. Well, the oil was already pasul. It wasn't tahor, right? It was at least pasul, and that was tummy. Therefore, you're allowed to combine it to give it a more severe level of tuma. But it already started as being tummy. So so too in this case we can say, but truma shenitma bevlada tuma. If you had truma that became tamei bevlada tuma shesarfina, so you had truma shenita bava tuma. You can go ahead and burn different levels of truma tameya together. Right? How could you go ahead and burn something which is teluya, right, which is basically a suffix? We don't know if it's tahor or tameh, with something that's tameh, because when you put it together, if it was tahor, now you're making it tameh. Shema yavo Eliyahu b'itarim. Perhaps Eliyahu Navi will come and say it's tahor. So how could he say in our Mishnah, Rabbi Shua said in our Mishnah, that you can burn the teluya, right? The teluya is a suffix. Burn the teluya with the tameya. If we see over here that Rabbi Shua says you cannot. So Mashani, the Gemara answers no. Ha Rabbi Shimon leave with Rabbi Shua. Ha Rabbi Yossi leave with Rabbi Shua. We have a machlokas as to what Rabbi Shua said between Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yossi. So this over here was Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi holds that according to Rabbi Shimon, that you can't do it together. But according to, it was Rabbi Yossi, Alibit Rabbi Yeshua, that said that he thought that he was taught by Rabbi Shua that you can burn them together, that you cannot burn them together. But Rabbi Shimon says, Rabbi Yeshua, that you're allowed to go ahead and burn the tameh with the teluya. The Tanya, as you see in a brisa, so we had the case of if the 14th comes out on Shabbos, and therefore Pesach is Motzei Shabbos, and therefore you have to burn your chametz. We can't burn on Shabbos, so you have to burn it on Friday on Yud Gimel. So what do we do over there? You get rid of it all before Shabbos. And you can burn the trumas that are tamei, that are tuluyos, and that are tahor. That's been a Rameir. And Rabbi Yossi Omer, so Rabbi Yossi, who's the one who is saying his opinion from Rabbi Shua, tahor fnei atzma, tuluyah fnei atzma, tamei fnei atzma. You can't go ahead and combine it. Each one is separate. The tahor is separate, the tuluyah, the suffix is separate, and the tamei is separate. And Amar Rabbi Shimon, and says Rabbi Shimon, and now we're talking about Rabbi Shimon, who he said is the same Rabbi Shimon of our Mishnah, who says you're allowed to go ahead and do it together, right? And Amar Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Shua, Torah about Tameya. First of all, they don't argue on the Torah and Tameya. Shein Sarfin out, right? Shein Sarfin, then he can't go ahead and burn them together. So Torah needs to be burnt alone, and a Tameya needs to be burnt alone. However, and Shein Sarfin. Now, Taluya about Torah, Sarfin. Not only that even something which is Taluya, Safek, and Tahira, you can go ahead and burn it together. Shesarfin. So Alman Nechlachu, what do they argue about? Ala Tluya, Ala Tmeya. They argue about something which is Safek and Tmeya. Rabbi Eliezer, that Rabbi Eliezer held that you burn them separately. And Rabbi Shua, and Rabbi Shua says you can go ahead and burn them together. So we see, this is Rabbi Shimon, that Lafi Rabbi Shua, right? He holds that you can go ahead and burn Tluya with Tameya together. The suffix with Tameya, you can burn it together. So what do you mean? So you say our Mishnah is Rabbi Shimon Lafi Rabbi Shua. It says I Bahamas means Rabbi Yossi. You look at our Mishnah, it says it's talking about Rabbi Yossi is talking, not Rabbi Shimon, right? If you look at our Mishnah, so it says no Hakikam Rabbi Yossi Rameir. This is what the conversation was between Rabbi Yossi and Rameir. Afilu Rabbi Shimon ve'afilu the Rabbi Yeshua to Mekel. Even according to Rabbi Shimon, who holds right that Rabbi Shua says that Ramekel, they can go ahead and burn two together. He's only makel b'tluya tameya, but tahira tameya lo. But that which he said, Rabbi Shua says, Rabbi Shimon, is only that you can burn tluya with tameya, but not tahira with tameya. So that was the argument in the Mishnah, because one the sheet of the Mishnah says you can burn them all together. So he says no, that I would say you can burn together is only the tluya and the tameya, right? According to Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Yeshua, but not tahira with tameya. That for sure you wouldn't be able to do according to Rabbi Yeshua. And fine, next case. So Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina, Rami Truma Pischa. Now there's a question of, right? We also saw this a little bit earlier before we got to all the Tuma Tahara, right? When you asking a kasha on Truma to Pesach, Umashani, and they answered it. So what was going on here? So mi Amar Rabbi Shua Shtein Kachas. Does Rabbi Shua say they can go ahead and burn them together? I've read from which L'char was from Mishnah. I've Raminu Asakasha Chavis Shel Truma Shenala Ba Safek Tuma. You have a barrel of Truma that is a Safek Tuma. So now you're stuck because you can't really burn it because it might be Torah, and you can't go ahead and or you can't destroy because it might be Torah, and you can't consume it because it might be Tameh. So Rabbi Eliezer Aimer im ha'isa munachas b'makom ha'turfa yinich b'makom ha'mutzna. If it was in a place basically where it was open, then go ahead and hide it away so it can't become tamei. Im ha'isa megula, if it was uncovered, then yichasen it. Go ahead and cover it. Then you're still protected so it doesn't become tamei. Rabbi Shua Aimer im ha'isa munachas b'makom ha'mutzna yinich b'makom ha'turfa im ha'isa mechusa yigilena. If it was in a private place, move it in an open place, right? If it was covered, uncover it. Why? Let's get rid of that suffix. Let it become vadai tame, okay? And then you can go ahead and treat it as truma tameya, right? Because there's no more suffix, right? Basically, go ahead and put it in a place where it could, right? It doesn't say be matame. Actually, it just says put in a place where it can. So it says over here, grama imbi adayim lo. It sounds like only over here, you can't actively make a tame, right? You can only cause it or put in help it become tame, but you're not actively doing it. So how can you go ahead and actively go ahead and destroy them together in the case of Pesach? Because then you're actively doing it. But we see over here in the case of Truma that you can't actively go ahead and be matame it. You just, okay, I'm going to put it there, uncover it, and then throughout the day, I'm sure somebody will come and touch it who's tame and be matame it or whatever it is. Umashani, and the answer over there, ha Rabbi Shimon Rabbi Yeshua, ha Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yeshua. That which we said, you can go ahead and do it all together, right? So in our case of the Mishnah, when we said you can do it, that was Rabbi Shimon with Rabbi Yeshua, as we explained. But the case of the other one was Rabbi Yosef with Rabbi Yeshua that says you can't do it. We can't do it actively. Each one has to be separate, and therefore you can't go ahead and do it by yadayim. You can only do it indirectly and not cause it any tumah at all, as opposed to Rabbi Shimon of our Mishnah, Lefi Rabbi Yeshua, that says you could actively burn the tluya with the tameya. And Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Truma. And Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Elazar asked a question from Truma on Truma, Umashani. And he answers, so what's the question over there? Sumi Amar Rabbi Shua Grama Imi Lo. Does he say you can go ahead and cause it, but you can't indirectly cause it, but not actively? We also saw this earlier. If you have a barrel of truma that broke the gas el yoina, it was in the upper vat, and therefore when it breaks, so it's going to flow down to whatever's underneath it. V'tachta chulin tmein, and underneath it was chulin that was tamei. So now, once the truma comes in, then the truma will be vadai tamei, right? So the upper one, so it broke, and now the truma is coming down, right? The truma is the truma tahira, right? Is flowing down, and it's going to come in contact with the chulin tameya, and it's going to become tamei. So Maide Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua, they both agree Shim Yachalatzim Mena Revis B'Tahara. Yatzil, if you can go ahead and find a kli that's tahor, then you should go ahead, right, and go ahead and save it, right? Even though, right, the rest of the truma will go into the chulin, right? At least some of it you'll be able to save v'imla, but you can't go ahead and save any of it, right? Rabbi Eliezer Aimer Teira v'titame. So then he says over there, you should go down and be matame it, right? Go ahead and be matame that biyad, right? And he should not go ahead and in other words, let it go down, right? But however, don't actively be matame it to stop it from flowing into the chulin, right? Because once it goes, right, there's no problem with chulin as tamei, right? That's not a big deal. You don't have to destroy chulin as tamei, right? But if chulin that mixed with truma that's tamei, you have to destroy. So if it's coming down, I stop it, but by stopping it, I'm being matame the truma. So I might have saved the chulin, but I was actively matame the truma, right? So maybe you can't do that, right? So maybe you can't actively do it. And Rabbi Shua Mer Yitzmena B'Yad, you can actively go ahead and stop the wine from becoming tamei, right? So how can you do that there? Because over there, there's a loss. You're losing your barrel of chulin, right? And therefore, at least to save it, right? It would have been a wash anyways, because the suffix or the would have come down, or not even the suffix, the truma would have come down, and it would have flown into the chulin, and now you would have had to destroy that. At least this way, by stopping the truma, right? At least at that point, even though you're being matame it, at least you go ahead and saving the chulin underneath it. So So what are our case? Why don't we say there's a hefset, there's a loss by I have to make more fires, right? Maybe I should burn it all together, and therefore I could save eitzim, I can save wood, right? When it comes to saving more wood, okay, I mean, we're not such environmentalists, right? We're not chayshish about the wood, right? We care. So it's a few dollars to have, to go ahead and make another bonfire. So therefore, that's not a big loss and will make you do that. But when it comes to that, to just allow this truma to go ahead and flow into the chulin, which is tamei, and therefore it'll be matame the truma, even though you're not doing it actively. That you're allowed to stop it, even to be matame the truma, in order to save the chulin. And where do we see that for hefsed meruba we are chayshid, but for a small loss, right, we're not concerned about a small loss. The time learned chavis shel shemen. All right, now this is oil. Right, the other one was wine. This is oil. So if you have a barrel of oil, truma shenish barrel bigas elyon, and that broke, that was tahor right now, but it broke on top with tachtoin chulin tamei. And once again, same exact case. You have chulin, which is tamei on the bottom, and the oil is going to flow into it. So if you do nothing, all the oil is going to go in there, and it's all going to be tamei. So we say over there, Maide Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua, Shim Yachal Atzim Men Rabbi Spitara. Yeah, if you can go ahead and save some of the oil coming down, if you go ahead and find a kli in time to salvage some of the oil, then you go ahead and save it, right? Even though it's going to go into the rest of it's going to go into chulin v'imla, but if not, teiref titami. If not, then go ahead and let it go. But don't go ahead and do it actively. All right. So now don't go ahead and do it actively. So the Gemara seems to say that in this case, right? So everybody agrees. There is no argument over here that you can't do it. You should just let it flow down. Now the issue really is, so maishna shemen. So what's the difference between oil, right? So what's the difference between oil? Deroi lahadlik, right? Because over there, oil, right, can be used, right, for lighting. In other words, you can use it for fuel. In other words, you can go ahead and burn the oil, even though it got mixed, right, chul and tameh with this oil that was tahor. Nevertheless, even though you can't go ahead and consume it, right, but you can go ahead and burn it, right? You can use it for cooking, for oil. Well, not in the food, but you can go ahead and for burning it. So yainami roy lizalif. Let's say wine. So go ahead and you can use truma, which is tameya, that's mixed with chulin. Why? Go ahead and use it for sprinkling. People used to go ahead and use wine for the aromas, right? So use it for that. So and if you're going to say, oh, that's not a real usage, and therefore you don't use, we're not going to allow you, like in the case of oil, you're not losing anything because you can just use it for using for fire. So therefore it's not a loss. But maybe wine is a loss because you can't drink it anymore because it's tummy. So he said, no, well, maybe you can use it for, aroma, putting it around for fragrance. So Gemara says, no. And if you say that's not a real usage, right? So you drink the wine that you drink is that which you purchase, that which you buy for a sella, and that which you go ahead and you sprinkle for for aroma, for smell, right? That is even for worth two. It's worth more. So you see that you use good wine for that. So maybe as we see that's a real usage. So the answer is b'chadash. We're talking about new wine. New wine does not have an aroma, and therefore it's not really used. So okay, so go ahead and age it. Right? Age this tameh combination of chul and tamein with this the wine that's trumatar, and therefore you have a usage. So don't be metameid at all and let it flow into it. So the answer is no. Asibe l'dei takala. Because if you leave the wine out, you might go ahead and come to drink it. So shemanami asi l'dei takala. So same thing with the oil, right? You're going to use the oil. You're going to leave it around because you can use it for burning, but maybe you'll come and go ahead and eat some of it. So Gemara says no. Because you go ahead and you put it in an earthenware vessel, which is gross. No one eats or will consume any oil that's been in there. So so why don't you go ahead and put the wine also in a disgusting kli? So it says no. Right? So 1 second. You're telling me that you're going to use the wine, right? You're going to age it in wine, right, for purpose of sprinkling, but you're going to put it in a kli cheres. That doesn't make sense, right? No one's going to, just like you're not going to drink it out of there, so too you're not going to use it for fragrance, and therefore that does not make sense. All right, we'll stop here, right? It's a short day. So tomorrow, so Sunday, Mirz Hashem, I guess davening, I assume is at the regular times in Shul, yeah. So Sunday, Mirz Hashem, will start at 7:00, and then we get back into Psachim, looks like. So we'll see you guys on Sunday, Mirz Hashem. Everyone have a good Shabbos and a